I see like from across the cosmos coming at me at warp speed source. And I am so happy, excited, elated that I also join in and at warp speed from my perspective, join and we combine in what is almost like an explosion. And I am encompassed inside of source. I was reminded what I was doing here.
Welcome, Laurie. Thank you so much for being here. Would you like to start maybe by explaining how these experiences occurred and what drew you to have these experiences, and then just go through and share whatever you'd like to share about them?
Okay. So I have been on a spiritual journey for over 20, probably close to 25 years now. And during the course of seeking, things start out as books, and then sometimes they, if you're lucky enough, can become real experiences. And so my journey really began in earnest back in 2012 when I lost a love in my life, and I was given information that led me to think that maybe something had happened to him before I actually got the actual news. And his death actually sent me on a kind of a quest of sorts to really find him on the other side and to understand that he was really still there, that although he died and wasn't physically here anymore, that he still existed and still cared about me. And so that journey continued for a long time. I started having lots of signs and synchronicities in my life. And then I had somebody come into my life, and we had a romantic relationship, and he was somebody that I connected with and admired quite a lot. He had a background of being part of the Marines, and he had graduated from the Naval Academy, and he was a very intelligent person. And he experienced pretty heavy PTSD from Desert Storm from the time he spent overseas. And he had attended this seminar where a married couple who had both served in Desert Storm were explaining a process that they used to overcome their PTSD. And it was through a substance called ayahuasca. The ayahuasca is a plant-based medicine. It has two components of it that are combined together. It's brewed and then you drink it. And the active ingredient in that is something called DMT, dihydrate. Oh, I gotta look. Hold on a second. I'm gonna trip myself up. Dimethyltryptamine. And it is a very powerful psychedelic. And it actually allows you to have an experience where you experience something greater than yourself. So people will often be able to overcome addictions on this, post-traumatic stress disorder, and a whole host of ailments from childhood trauma to all kinds of experiences. And this medicine also a lot of times comes with a lot of purging. In other words, people will drink it. It's a long 6 or 8 hour experience and they will throw up. And I just was never drawn to it, but he was very much drawn to it. And so I watched him seek out people who could help him have a journey like this. And so this isn't something that's done lightly. He actually found a shaman to work with and had a one-on-one experience, and then had a few others. And I'm just going to explain a couple of things because I think that this helps bring light to why would somebody want to do this. So he had an experience where he he saw death and destruction and smelled death and destruction in a way that was very traumatic. And he was shown in this medicine journey, he had an entity that came in and showed him that when that occurred, he turned off his sense of smell. and it was a protection. And he was shown that that was no longer serving him and that was okay for him to turn it back on. And so they helped guide him to turn that back on and release those very traumatic experiences that he had visualized and had smelled. So this is one example of how this medicine can release and heal people. So that was his journey. And then he also had a few other journeys with different types of medicines. And I became very curious when he would talk about this. And at some point, I became drawn into having a couple of different experiences. But the one that really caught my attention was an experience he had with a substance called 5-MeO-DMT. So this is probably the most powerful psychedelic on the planet. This DMT is a very short acting. It's derived from a substance from the Sonoran Desert toad. They actually excrete a poison that protects them. So they harvest it much like you would harvest venom from a snake. They dry it, they put it into a glass container, they heat it, and it turns into a vapor that you would inhale. And for him, when he had this journey, he said it was like he was catapulted out of his body onto the other side. For him, he experienced this vast expansion of his soul where he felt like every part of who he was, of his ego, dissolved. And again, this was very healing for him. And for whatever reason, when he described this, I knew instantly that this was something that I was drawn to try. Now, I'm a super conservative person. I've never tried any type of substances before. And I don't like to be out of control. I'm like a one drink person. This is really kind of uncharacteristic. So before I decided to partake in this, I actually did a massive amount of research. So I read books, I went to see talks on this, and I watched a bunch of videos and kind of immersed myself into what this was. And I wanted to make sure I wasn't putting myself in any type of danger. So I sought out the person that he used, which was a shaman who had personally taken this journey over 200 times herself and is also a death doula. In other words, she works with people who are in the last stages of cancer and are dying. And she does 3 treatments with them, starting with a very small microdose, a larger dose, and then what would be considered a breakthrough dose that allows you to leave your body. And what happened over and over again with these people that she was working with who were going to, not that we all are going to experience death, but they knew theirs was coming, is that they all lost their fear of death and dying. And so with all of this information, I decided to have my own journey with 5-MeO-DMT. And it's, like I said, a very short acting substance. So it only lasts for an hour to an hour and a half. And so I really have done a tremendous amount of work on myself. I've gone to energy healers. I've spent a lot of time reflecting and trying to do things that raise my vibration. I don't watch the news at all. And I really felt like I was mentally and physically prepared to do a journey like this. And so I went in and had my first one. So the way that this happens is you inhale this medicine and you hold it in, and you're supposed to count backwards and to 10. I've never gotten past 2, and I never even remember feeling myself lie down. What happens to me is the world becomes what I call last mimsy. It's from the movie The Last Mimsy, where they showed this scene where the room almost had a grid-like pattern that was iridescent. And it's almost like seeing behind the curtain, like this is the matrix, this is an illusion, it's a game for us. And pretty much every time I've taken one of these journeys, that's what happens first. I see the grid illusion and then boom, I'm out of my body. So from an earthly standpoint, what happens is that my body lays down. I don't remember it. Once in a while, the shaman says that I will laugh or I will have some expression, and then I'm completely silent. My body lays still. It is motionless. I'm, of course, breathing. And I want to also say that DMT has been studied for many, many years, more than 25 years. And one of the things, Dr. Rick Grossman is one of the foremost experts on it. He's had a lot of experience, not only with chemical, but also, with man-made DMT. But he believes that DMT is actually naturally produced in the brain. They think that it may come from the pineal gland and that it is produced in your brain at 3 times. One, when you are born, so soul enters the body. When you die, soul leaves the body. Or if you have some traumatic experience where the soul inadvertently leaves the body, like as in an out of body or a near-death experience. So I knew that this was a substance that I wasn't going to be able to overdo, and I was in very good hands, and I felt very, very safe doing this. I also want to say I'm not advocating this for anybody. I am not giving anybody advice and telling people that they should be doing this. This is such a sacred thing for me, and the fact that I'm sharing this, I always feel like I'm going out on a limb a little bit to share this, because people will have opinions about it and they will make comments about it. But for me, these have been life-changing, positive, and very healing experiences for me to understand the true nature of who I am. So the first time I left my body, I felt like I immediately became my soul. This is so difficult to describe with human words, because this is an ineffable experience. We don't have what I'm going to attempt very feebly to describe with words, who we are on a soul level. So first of all, when I become my soul, it is like a vibration. If you were to take a high vibration like a jackhammer and multiply that by 1,000,000, but instead of the roughness of the jackhammer, it is a vibration that is so fast, it's like a hummingbird wing, but it's so fast it almost becomes still. And that vibration also has a feeling to it, like in a couple of my journeys, I felt what feels like a helicopter warping of my soul. It's like this warping feeling of energy of what my soul is. And it also has a sound to it. It's like if you were to take the most beautiful musical note you've ever heard, and if you were able to take it and let it go in that one perfect, beautiful note all the way out into infinity without ending, that was what the sound was. And then when I looked at my soul, I didn't have a human figure to my soul. It's almost like I was just a light being that was made of these very intricate grids that were filled with iridescent colors that we have here and colors that I can't describe. And it was a feeling of love more than anything else. Like this feeling, more than anything about my soul, it was this feeling of complete love. Like here we experience love, and on the other side, we are love. There is nothing outside of that feeling of love and peace and beauty. And it is the single most beautiful experience I have ever had. And it is so difficult to hold on to that. Like I can sometimes get into a quiet space and connect to that feeling, but it's fleeting glimpses of it because it is so far beyond anything that we have experienced here. So take whatever feeling of love you have for another human being, for an animal that you have unconditional love for, and multiply that by millions, because that is the feeling of love that we have on the other side. So on that first journey, I was my soul, and it was like, whoa, this is what we are. Like, how do we have a veil that is strong enough for us to forget that? Like, how did I forget I am that? And then whoo, I was right back in my body. And when I came back into my body, I went from this feeling of expansion where my soul was maybe the size of the planets to back into my body, and it didn't feel good. It was horrible. And I immediately started sobbing as I am coming to, and realized, oh my God, that just happened. That felt more real than anything here feels. And now I was like, I immensely miss it, and I don't want to be here. And I am sobbing uncontrollably that I have had this experience and I have come back. And I think that things definitely happen for a reason. I had read somewhere that people would do more than one of these experiences. And I also want to preface this. So there are people who have only had one of these, would never have another one in their life because of the intensity. You can watch videos on different shows. I think Mike Tyson had a 5-MeO DMT experience that changed everything about his life and only had one. But like a crazy person, I knew that when I came back in my body, I knew that the person after me had canceled their session. And the first thing I said, when I have the ability to form words and I'm kind of coming, my body and my brain is coming back online, I asked if I could go back in and have a second journey. And she said yes. And it was kind of funny because I almost feel like it was all predestined to happen that way. And I knew before I asked her that she was going to allow me to do this. So I recovered for a little while. You're in a state of complete and utter bliss. When I come back from that journey, just lying there consciously, I have this way of breathing that I have not been able to replicate outside of being on that in that place. It's this feeling of, if you could take in enough oxygen, it's almost like you can raise your vibration to the highest level that you can attain in this human body. And that's how I will feel for quite a while after that. And then she had me sit up and I did it again. And immediately I was catapulted out of my body. And this time, when I got there, I had the ability to experience my soul for a little bit longer. And I also experienced this translucent light, which I called the light for a long time, and it was God. And so the first time I felt that love in my body and of my soul, of what I was, but now I was feeling a love that was coming from this light being that was even more strong than the love I was feeling as my soul. The light that emanated and the love that emanated from this being was like nothing I'd ever experienced. And I know that I had a telepathic interaction, but I don't think that I was allowed to bring any of that back. And I felt like I was there for a longer period of time. And then this time when I came back into my body, it felt the same. I felt like going from this giant expansion back into this small, tiny body. But this time, instead of crying and sobbing, I laughed uncontrollably for probably an hour. I was so tickled at understanding the game that this was. And I don't want to minimize. When I say this, I have to preface it with, we have real human problems here. We have sadness and we experience loss that is so profound and overwhelming in our human experience. And I do not want to minimize those experiences for anybody. But one of the things that I've brought back, one of the gifts that I feel like I've been given from these journeys, is understanding that this is a game, that on a soul level, your soul cannot be harmed in any way, shape, or form. So whatever trauma you're experiencing, whatever pain, whether it's physical or emotional, you cannot be harmed in your soul. It's an illusion. And this game is a game that we're playing because we're here to, since we are love on the other side, we come here to experience love here and to kind of see if we can remember on some level what we are on the other side. I think that that's part of the game, and everybody's game is different. So somebody's game may just to have a short experience, and they're in a soul for a short amount of time, and then they leave and they have a certain experience that their parents are going to have, their parents have asked to have because of them dying. So I think that we set up these experiences for ourselves. They can be lessons, but on the other side, I think that we are pretty much all knowing, but we want to have these experiences that help our soul understand things from a different perspective. So I think that's why we do it. And the other knowledge that I have is that this is a very simplistic game. And I was shown in one of my journeys that the part that I bring of my soul into this human body would be like the finger, my pinky nail, fingernail. That's the small, tiny essence, because on a soul level, we are so powerful. And to us on a soul level, this is just a simple game that we play because we have eternity to do it and we want to have these experiences. But that being said, I do also believe that not every soul chooses to have an incarnation here because it is so difficult to feel that separation from the other side. So that was my first journey. I, of course, then felt compelled later to go back and have another journey. And since then, I have had a couple of journeys where I don't do it twice. I have done it 3 times in a row, like a real crazy person. But these have, again, been very purposeful for me. And although it might sound crazy to you, it doesn't feel or seem crazy to me. These feel very divinely set up for me to be able to experience because I feel like I'm on a certain path and I have been asked to help bring that love and light of God and shine that back into the world. And I kind of feel like that is my soul's purpose, to help empower people to understand that you are powerful and beautiful and you are loved and that you can't be harmed and that you're here having this experience. And it is an absolute privilege to be here. We fought to come in and have this experience because we wanted to grow, and we kind of maybe dread on some levels doing it. But the illusion, of course, is it feels like we're having a 40, 50, 80, 100-year experience when on the other side, it feels like we just went on a 2-week vacation. So my other journeys have been very similar. Every time for me, I become my soul. I think that this might be a little bit unusual compared to other people's experiences on 5-MeO-DMT. A lot of people describe not seeing themselves, but more of seeing like the universe or mandalas or geometry or sacred geometry or math, and trying to understand the universe from that perspective. That has really not been my experience. Mine has all been understanding who I am on a soul level. And I feel so fortunate to have been able to bring those experiences back to try to explain to people what we truly are and the power that we are and the beauty that we are. But I did have a journey where I was with a light being. I do not know who this light being was. I couldn't give it any type of a name. It could have been one of my spirit guides. It could have been some type of an ascended master, but I know it was not God. But I was with a light being, and they showed me the earth, and the earth looked like it was light years away. And it wasn't like I was in outer space. It seemed more like just a blackness, but I could see, even though I was light years away, I could telepathically see the earth. And they were giving me lessons on or helping me to understand things that I guess I was questioning. And they were showing me the evolution of the souls, the humans that were here on earth right now, and how everybody had a different path and everybody had a different level that they were of what they refer to as evolvement. And I want to be very careful when I say a word like this, because I think sometimes when I say that, you think good, better, best. And you have to understand, on a soul level, there is no good, better, best. God is not looking down on the infancy of what we are as souls. And even though we may see a soul like an ascended master, like maybe somebody who has a brighter light than us, they would still not look at us and think that we were less, and we would not look at them and think that they are better. But it was just an evolution. And I don't know if it's pertinent to this human incarnation of what I was seeing or the overall soul level of what somebody was. But the way it was kind of explained to me is that we are working our way back to source or God. And I really hate to use the word God because that has so many human connotations that people put in a box. And the power of God is beyond our comprehension. There is nothing that I can say or do that helps you understand the immensity of what God source is. But we are on our way on a journey back to that. And when we have these experiences, it helps us to grow. I'm going to say with air quotes because I don't even like to really use that word, but or evolve into this different state that we are kind of trying to get to the point where we have had maybe it's like having experiences. Like if you could have every single experience on this planet, on another planet, and in realms that we probably can't even imagine, you would understand things maybe from the way that God does. And that would be the evolution back. So if that makes any sense. But I was shown that most souls we're not very far along on that evolutionary path. And that was why we are experiencing so many things that we would perceive and maybe put a label of negative on: war, destruction, not treating the planet very well. And that there were a certain amount, a certain percentage of people that were here on this life in this earth plane that were very evolved, and they were here as light workers to help evolve the energy of the planet. So I do believe that that's kind of what we're going through right now. And I think that this is why I was allowed and maybe even drawn towards these experiences that I've had. And then the last thing I'm going to share, because these are just so in depth and there's so much to them, but the last one I want to share is my last experience that I had. I felt very drawn on the winter solstice of 2020 to go and have this experience. And it was my intention to have 3 of them. I actually even paid in advance to have 3 of them. And I went in and I, as usual, became my soul. It's almost like I kick my arms and legs that I don't have, and I just expand into this soul. And all of a sudden, I am my soul, and I see, like, from across the cosmos coming at me at warp speed, source. And I am so happy, excited, elated that I also join in, and at warp speed, from my perspective, join, and we combine in what is almost like an explosion. And I am encompassed inside of source. And it is communicated to me very, I don't want to use the word stern, because God is nothing but love, but I was very, I was reminded what I was doing here. And on my soul level, I said, I know. Okay. I'll do it. And this feeling of combining with source was so overwhelming. It felt like I was going, if I stayed any longer, my soul was going to explode into a bazillion pieces and wouldn't exist anymore. And I like to call it excruciating ecstasy. It was the strongest emotional experience I've ever had. And it was so overwhelming that when I released from it and came back into my body, I actually felt like I might have ruined my human game and I wouldn't be able to come in and be me anymore. And I actually had some thoughts of, I was scared that has had what might have been what happened, but that was done, I think, very much on purpose. And I was allowed, because I don't think that you get what you want, you get what you need in these experiences. And I do not believe in accidents. And so for me, this felt very purposeful to help me, in order to really understand the love of God. To have that experience helps me to then take that and send that into the world for other people, because we're just energy and we're vibration, and we can send these vibrations out, and everybody is looking for love. I think that that's ultimately what we're here to experience. So I have not, it's been over a year since I've had one of these experiences. And I have again felt very drawn to have another one. And I have the intention of having it on 2/2/2 at 2:00. And after, I just kind of felt like if it was meant to be, everything would fall into place seamlessly. I have to travel a great distance to go and do this. And the shaman I work with has to be available, and everything fell into synchronicity. And then I kind of panicked a little bit, because I'm telling you, that last experience was something else. And I'm like, is this just me and my human mind saying, I want to have this experience? Or was it really divinely, created for me to have, and to have that wanting? And so I asked for a sign, and I want to share it with everybody, because I'm all about the signs and synchronicities. And so the next day, my friend, who I hike with, she's my everyday hiking partner. We have been friends for 6 years. And the whole time I've known her, she has never once offered me an article of clothing. But this day she brought me a dress, and she's like, I have this wrap dress. I was going through my closets. I think it'd look really great on you. Do you want it? And I was like, yeah, I'll take it. And when I got home, I was just getting ready to hang it up, and I happened to glance at the label. And I'm going to share with everybody what this label is. It says Toad and Company, and it even has a little toad on it. And I knew immediately, as soon as I saw that I was absolutely on my path, and that this is something has been divinely orchestrated. And I also want to point out that last journey that I had, The 2 days before I left to have that journey, I was driving in Arizona where I live, and I saw a license plate that said AZ Angel. And I was like, oh, it's a sign. I'm getting ready to go on my journey. Like, this is divinely orchestrated. And then on the day of my journey, I was driving and I was in California, getting close to my destination. I was about 20 minutes away, and a car passed me, and the license plate said Angel 3X. And I knew that I was on the right path. So I get signs and synchronicities that help me to understand that it's not just my human brain wanting to do this. This is something so much bigger and more sacred for me. So for the people who are going, oh, this is you can put whatever label you want. These are sacred medicine journeys that are healing and are nothing but love. And they are not for everybody, but I do not believe that they are bad. I believe that they are something that I am absolutely meant to experience.
So the first thing I want to ask you, and this is just something that I'm always curious about, in that last experience where you had the excruciating ecstasy and were with, did you say, I forget the wording that you described, but were you with the source? Or
So I'm glad you brought that up, because there's something I really, really want everybody to understand. And I'm going to say, Melissa, you are the only person that I have ever heard say this on one of your videos to Jeff Mara. You said this. When I combined with Source, the information I was given is that there is nothing outside of Source. So if Source were a whale, everything that existed was inside of that cavity. And that is a concept that is almost impossible for my human brain to wrap itself around. But there is nothing happening outside of Source. It's an illusion that there is. And I think when a lot of people think about God, universal consciousness, creator, the light, whatever you want to label it, you think of, I'm here and here's this entity that looks like whatever it looks like in your mind to you. And everything is actually happening and created within that being. So when I say that we can't even come close to understanding the power of what that being is, I mean, everything that you can imagine, everything that has been discovered with the galaxies and the universe and probably multi-universes is inside that. That's some pretty big power right there.
I know it is impossible to articulate, but what was that experience like? What did that feel like?
It was more of a feeling of vibration. So when I was experiencing my soul and that vibration was so high, a million jackhammers, down to almost stillness, multiply that by a billion. And I know those sound like I feel so stupid sometimes when I say these things, because I'm trying to put multiply what times a billion? It's a crazy concept, but there's just nothing that I have that I can use to explain the power of what that was. And it was almost like everything that existed, everything that was known was flashing in there. And I feel like I probably knew everything that was in that place, but I retained zero of that coming back. All I can say is that there is more that I don't know than I do know. That's kind of how I feel after having an experience like that. There's more that I don't know. There's more that I can't explain than that I could.
So you mentioned seeing a holographic grid when you leave your body. Do you have any information on what exactly that is, or how this life experience works here?
I don't think I do more than just speculation and guess, but I'm gonna explain it this way. I grew up having a pretty agnostic view of what happened when we died. I kind of thought oh, we die. If I'm a good person, I'll go to heaven. Like that, Christian, biblical, even though we didn't really spend much time at church, that's just kind of how I thought. And I didn't really put a lot of thought into, is there a God? Maybe there is. I hope there is, but I don't know if I believe in it. And so that upbringing was like this whole convoluted misunderstanding. So when I saw a few things from that standpoint, when I'm younger, I saw a movie called Defending Your Life. Like this is like 1991. And in it, he goes and this guy dies and he has this experience and he realizes that everything about life on earth was to overcome fear. And that if you could overcome fear, you got to move on and become a bigger piece of the universe.
Mm.
Even though I didn't believe in concepts like that, and I didn't necessarily believe there was anything outside of when we died, that movie heavily resonated. And that was like number one, number two, probably all time favorite movie. And then there was another one about the same time called Made in Heaven, where this guy dies and he goes to heaven and he meets a girl and they are like soul connected. And she goes back to earth and he has to go find her. And I was like, oh, it just felt like truth when I saw that. Now, of course, I
Mhm.
believe in soulmates, multiple, infinite amounts of soulmates, not just that one person that completes you. And I believe that we have this come to earth and have this experience. And it's about love and finding love and having these soul contracts so that we can learn through these experiences with other people. And then the last one that I really had was The Matrix. When I saw that movie, that was like light bulbs going off of like, oh, that's what this is. Like, that's what this is. And now, from this perspective, after, of course, having these journeys and being on this,
Mhm.
like I described, this spiritual journey and watching and probably reading about 1,000 people's near-death experiences, I not only have faith that that's what happens, I have an understanding. So I do really believe that this is a game. This is a simple game. This is like the people like near death experiencers or people who have had these medicine journeys where they've gone out of their body and escaped for momentarily the human experience, kind of think that this life is what they call the cosmic joke because it's so simple. If you could understand how simple it was, we would never worry about anything. But of course, it doesn't feel that way. And I, just like everybody else, get all bogged down in the humanness of what I'm going through and experience in my life and have to deal with that. And I actually use near death experience videos to raise my vibration because it is a game that we get bogged down in, but I really do believe it's a game.
Thank you for explaining that so beautifully.
Thank you.
I would love to know how these spiritual experiences, these medicine journeys, how they've impacted your life. Like, how have they changed you?
They've changed me and they haven't because I was already on this path. I think instead of just having faith that it was something more, I have that real life experience. But I also believe that when my passed away loved one, Mark, died, he opened something in me that allowed me to see things, synchronicities that I didn't see before. And I started writing them down so I wouldn't misremember them. And as time has gone on, because he's been gone for this year, it'll be 10 years, my life every day becomes more and more and more synchronistic. And it's not just like one thing that happens. It's not like I hear a song on a radio. It's like I hear a song on the radio that is an answer to some question I'm asking. At the same time, a license plate goes in front of me that also has the answer. And then somebody else says something. And so it just allows me to understand this bigger picture of what we are. And it reminds me all the time of how powerful we are and how we can create this life that we're in love with. And then I feel like it is my purpose not to chase like the material wealth. And I'm not a things person, so I'm not drawn to that. But I've had super successful corporate careers, and all of a sudden in 2020 that ended. And I took a year off to try and build this course to help people understand how they could uncover their own soul's purpose. And I made $4,000 last year. That's it. I mean, coming from massive amounts of money to that and actually incurring debt that I never had before because I feel so drawn to do this work and to really just be true to myself. And it's kind of a leap of faith to do that. But I just feel like maybe it's all because of having these experiences, I was able to let go of the attachment I had to, defining myself as a certain company or defining myself as a job or defining myself as a salary that I made, and understanding that the biggest thing that we can do is kindness. Like, this is my reminder and why I'm wearing this, because I feel like it's all about the kindness and the ripple effect we send into the world. I've watched enough near-death experience people talk about having a life review, and how when we die, we experience not only the good things that we created, but the things that we created intentionally and even unintentionally, and very intentionally in a bad way, that ripple effect of the emotion that we caused in somebody else, and how that rippled out into their lives, into the other people had to experience in their lives. And I'm just so cognizant of my ripple effect on the world. And I just try to be very careful with that. I'm still human. So you cut me off in traffic, I might call you a name, and I might get frustrated because my technology is not working, and we're still human, and we're meant to have this human experience. But as much as I can, I try to be grateful and, keep my vibration at a level that allows me to send positivity and love back into the world, to do the job that I'm here to do, which is to send that love back to everybody else.
That's actually a great segue into the last question that I'd like to ask you. That you mentioned that you don't like the words evolve and grow, but to sort of understand what we're talking about, we have to use our limited language sometimes. So you also mentioned that many people here are at the beginning of the evolution, and what can we do just in general to help ourselves and other people along that path?
So I think the most important thing that you can do is that you have to understand this one concept, and that is that there is no separation. It feels like, Melissa, you are you, and it feels like I am me, and it feels like everybody watching, that you are your own individual container, because this is what we're embodying right now. But on a soul level, there is no separation. Everything is one, everything is part of source, and everything is interconnected. We are interconnected in ways that you cannot fathom. And this is the most important part, what you do to somebody else, you are literally doing to yourself. And I hate the word literal, it's used so much, it's overused right now in our language. But what you do to somebody else, you do to yourself. And I mean that in the broadest and in the micro and macro version of that. So when you cut somebody off in traffic and you swear, you think that you're all contained in your own car, but you're sending that energy to somebody else. When you smile at somebody, which just seems like such a simple thing, you have no idea what that connection, what that smile can do to somebody else, and how that can ripple out into their lives. So when we do these big egregious things with an intention to be mean because we think I'll get them back, you're actually doing that to yourself, because that energy that you're sending out is actually coming back to you. It's what you're attracting back to you. And so on some level later on, you'll experience it all. Maybe from a detached perspective. I don't think we do it with a lot of judgment. We just do it to understand on a deeper experiential level what we do. So as much as you can, try to smile at people, try to turn the thoughts that are bad into loving thoughts and send people love and energy. And because if only for the selfish reason that you want that to come back to you, but truly what you send into the world not only comes back to you, but you are doing that to yourself. So it's almost like you're giving yourself a little gift.
Is there anything else you'd like to share about what you have going on, or where people can get in touch with you?
So if people have questions, of course, I know people like to put things in the comments, so of course they can, and I'll take a look at it and I'll try to answer things. If you really want to connect with me directly, I'll give Melissa my email. You can connect with me there. I do have my own YouTube channel where I talk to people about their synchronistic stories, and I like to talk about my own synchronistic stories. But I did create a course that is a culmination of almost kind of like my life's work, of everything that I've studied, the thousands of books that I've read, the thousands of hours of content that I've studied to help, help myself grow and learn and evolve. I've put into a course that I release in little videos on my YouTube channel called Uncover Your Soul's Purpose. What you don't know is holding you back, and no meditation required. And you can consume that in the little videos. They go in a sequential order, but you can consume as many as you like. And I just hope that it empowers you in some way to understand who you are and really to create a life that you're in love with. Because ultimately, I think that's what we're here to do. We're here to enjoy our time, and we're here to love and experience love. And that's why we do this.
Thank you for watching the Love Covered Life podcast. If you'd like to support this channel, I've shared the link to my Patreon in the description box, where you can get benefits like behind the scenes of this podcast, early ad-free access to interviews, and a monthly live stream Q&A with me. I've also shared the link to my free Discord community, which I've just started and I'm very excited about, where I share free resources and a bunch of channels and forums where people can connect and grow spiritually together. You'll also find the link to my website, lovecoveredlife.com, where I share my paintings, my TikTok and Instagram at Melissa Denise, and my clips channel, where I share shorter clips of my podcast episodes. Thank you for watching, and thank you for your support.